it right there, pulling up.
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
Look as his character is stabbed to death. And there's no mistaking the Trump connection.
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact.
Where is John Wilkes Booth when you need him?
A huge papier-mâché Trump head. The Trump pinata had been sort of popular throughout California as many people were taking their frustrations out on these Trump pinatas, and they set it on fire. Many Californians, Don, that did not vote for Donald Trump sort of feel that this was not their choice, and now they're stuck with it. Lily, your sign tonight says...
Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter. If we don't fight, who's going to fight for us? People had to die for freedom where we're at today. We can't just do rallies. We have to fight back. There will be casualties on both sides. There will be, because people have to die to make a change in this world.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
You know, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
Enemies of the state.
Our democracy is under siege. People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator. We need a revolution at this point.
A Missouri state senator is under investigation by the Secret Service after saying she hopes President Trump is assassinated.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
Do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless.
When they go low, we kick them.
The biggest terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized to the right.
I thought he should have punched him in the face. I said, even if you lost, he insulted your wife.
Yes.
He came down the escalator and called Mexicans rapists and murderers. He said, well, what do you think I should have done? I said, I think you should have punched him in the face and then gotten out of the race. You would have been a hero.
I'd like to punch him in the face.
Sadly, the domestic enemies to our voting system and our honoring our Constitution are right at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
I was walking out with our Trump sign. They grabbed my Trump sign and started following me, saying I was like a racist and stuff.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that this isn't, they're not going to let up, and they should not.
We have to understand that what happened on Wednesday was insurrection against the United States. That is what Donald J. Trump engaged in. We came close to half of the House nearly dying.
It doesn't get much more shameful than this. In the last couple of days, we've seen more and more videos of the riot from different angles. It's become more and more clear this attack was even more violent than we saw live on TV. This was even more treacherous. Trump's behavior was even more disturbing than we knew in real time. We were minutes away from a possible massacre.
Well, he's absolutely a sore loser, isn't he, Jim? And you contrast what he said last night, and it just proves how false those words were last night. It looked like a hostage video he was forced he was forced to make those statements. You know, there are a lot of people who are going to be glad he's not there. He's just so insulting in so many ways, and such a crybaby. It's just disgusting.
The idea that the Republican Party is going to somehow defy the label of being a violent insurrectionist party with fascist markers.
Donald J. Trump called for the insurrection against the United States of America.
You talked about Al-Qaeda. What has he done in terms of incitement, right, that Osama bin Laden didn't do?
Each of these people should be shamed, and they're going to go back,
to the Olive Garden and to the Holiday Inn that they're staying at.
The way that we in the media speak about this is so important.
Today was terrorism. We call them terrorists.
Terrorists. Domestic terrorists.
Domestic terrorists.
Domestic terrorists.
These people are not Americans.
Kevin McCarthy was on Fox calling this un-American. Marco Rubio.
I don't know. There's a lot of empty rhetoric. There's a lot of empty concern.
Hawley, I should say, of all people, had the nerve to condemn the violence that we saw today.
Josh Hawley should resign in ignominy. Ted Cruz as well. But honestly, Mitch McConnell, too.
Shame on them. Shame on those senators. They sided with domestic terrorists yesterday, and we won't forget it.
This in no way absolves them of the sin and the sins that they and the president had committed against this country.
And if Donald Trump Jr., Rudy Giuliani, and Donald Trump are not arrested today for insurrection and taken to jail and booked.
It was encouraged by our Republican colleagues, and that is why every single one of them, especially because they have been the ones trying to steal this election, that's why we are calling for them to be removed.
But then Trump supporters come in and you open the fucking doors for them. Oh my God. You open the doors for them.
There's violence across the whole country. Do you disavow the violence from Antifa? That's happening in Portland right now? There's riots.
That's a myth. That's being spread only in Washington, D.C.
About Antifa in Portland?
Yes.
Sir, there's videos everywhere online. There's fires and riots. They're throwing fireworks at federal officers. DHS is there.
Interesting to me to see Democrats who once disparaged, who ignored the violence, I should say, all of a sudden caring about it. But let's not forget what they said previously. Jerry Nadler, when asked about Antifa, he said that was a myth that's being spread around Washington, D.C. It's not a myth. In fact, an Antifa individual took the life of an innocent Trump supporter in Portland. Ayanna Pressley saying that she wanted unrest in the streets. Chris Cuomo saying, show me where it says protesters are supposed to be peaceful. I'll give you an idea, Chris, it's the Constitution. Don Lemon saying, quote, the rioting has to stop, Chris, as you know. And I know it's showing up in the polls, it's showing up in the focus groups. It's the only thing right now that's sticking. So now all of a sudden, 90 days later, I from this podium have talked about law and order. The president has talked about law and order repeatedly, but because the polling has shifted, now it's time for the Democrats to deny what they said previously and all of a sudden focus on law and order. That's like the arsonist blaming the firefighter.